The card declined at the pharmacy. $60. Heart medicine. The kind I take so my mornings keep coming. I ran it again. The little machine thought about it. Then a red word came up on the screen. Declined. The girl at the register was young. She looked away, the way kind people do when they are watching a stranger shrink. She did not want to see it. I did not want to be seen. Try it one more time, I said. Declined. I set my thumb on the counter and I breathed. Behind me, a man shifted his weight. A baby fussed in a cart. The fluorescent lights hummed their flat little hum. I reached into my back pocket. I keep an old billfold there, cracked at the fold, worn soft as a glove. I counted out 3 20s. My hands did not shake. I made sure of that. Cash, I said. That'll do it. The girl nodded and did not meet my eyes. I took my paper bag and I walked out into a cold March wind. In the parking lot, I sat in my truck and I called my daughter. Whitney answered on the second ring. She always answers fast when she thinks she is winning. Dad. My card was declined at the pharmacy, I said. Both of them. For my heart medicine. There was a small silence. Not surprise, the other kind. I canceled them, Dad. Her voice was smooth, rehearsed. You can't be trusted with money anymore. We talked about this. We had not talked about anything. She had talked. I had sat there. I see, I said. It's for your own good. I paid cash, I told her. Have a good afternoon, sweetheart. I hung up before she could hear anything in my voice. There was nothing in my voice. That was the point. I sat with the engine off, the heat ticking out of the vents, the bag of pills on the seat beside me, small and white and paid for. Then I picked the phone back up. I called a number I have kept in the same place for 30 years, but I am getting ahead of myself. To understand what happened 10 minutes after that phone call, you have to know who I was before anyone decided who I would become. I am Everett Trainer, 68 years old, retired, a widower in a small Iowa town where folks believe a quiet man must be an empty one. Adair is the kind of place where the same 40 trucks park at the same diner every morning. Mine is the green one, 19 years old, and it runs like a watch, because I know what a watch is made of. I was a tool and die man. Do you know what that is? Most people do not. When a factory needs a part made to the width of a hair, they need a die. Somebody has to cut that die out of hard steel and get it right the first time, because steel does not forgive. I was that somebody for a long time. I opened my own shop in 1985, 2 lathes and a loan and a wife who believed in me more than the bank did. Trainer Precision. By the time I was 50, I had 14 men on the floor and more work than we could take. I sold it in 2015. A good man bought it and kept the name and kept the men. I shook his hand and I drove home, and I did not look back once. A tool knows when it has done its job. The men on my floor called me careful. They meant it 2 ways, and both ways were true. I measured twice. I also never spent $1 I had not already made peace with spending. We cut parts for tractor plants. We cut parts for a while for a company that built heart pumps. I used to think about that on the drive home in the dark. Somewhere a stranger's chest was rising and falling on a piece of steel my hands had shaped. You do not forget a thing like that. It teaches you what quiet work can hold up. A whole life sometimes, without ever once announcing itself. That was the lesson of my trade, and it became the lesson of my marriage. And it is the lesson of this whole story, so I will say it plain now and only once. The quiet thing and the small thing are not the weak thing. Very often they are the only thing holding the roof up. My wife was Ada. Ada Neal before she was Ada Trainer. She had a laugh that started low and climbed. She kept the books in our house on index cards, in pencil, in a tin box, and she balanced them to the penny every Sunday night for 40 years. She died in the spring of 2023. I will not spend your evening on that. I will only say the house got very loud when she left it. Silence can be loud. You learn that. Her recliner still sits by the window. I have never once sat in it. At the foot of our bed there is a cedar hope chest she brought to the marriage. Inside it is a blue quilt, the wedding ring pattern that her grandmother stitched. And under the quilt is a savings passbook from 1983. The first account we ever opened started with $40 we could not really spare. We were never poor, Ada and I. We just never told anybody we weren't. That was her way, and it became mine. She used to say money is quietest when it is doing the most good. So we kept it quiet. We drove old trucks. We paid cash. We put a little away every single quarter in good years and lean ones, and we let it grow the slow way. The only way that lasts. I kept it quiet after she was gone too. Maybe too quiet. Because a family that has never seen your hand will start to believe you are holding nothing. Whitney is my only child, 38 now. She was a bright girl who grew into an anxious woman, and I do not say that unkindly. She married a man named Colton Pruitt, who sells you a house you cannot afford with a smile you cannot argue with. After Ada died, Whitney started managing me. It began small. It always does. At Sunday dinner, she would reach across and take the check out of my hand. "I've got it, Dad," said warm in front of everyone, so that anyone watching would see a devoted daughter and not a grown man having his own wallet lifted from his fingers. Colton liked those moments. He would lean back and grin. "Let the grown-ups handle the numbers, Ev," he said once. He calls me Ev. I never gave him leave to. They laughed. I remember Ivy did not. Ivy is 7, my granddaughter. She has Ada's low-climbing laugh, though she will never know that. That night she looked at me across the table with a small line between her eyebrows, the way a child does when the room says one thing and her stomach says another. I winked at her. She smiled. That was worth more than the check. The cuts got deeper by the season. Whitney began collecting my mail. "So nothing slips past you, Dad." She would open my statements before I saw them, flatten them, set them in a folder, explain them back to me slowly, like I was a boy who had wandered into a bank. She started finishing my sentences, correcting my stories at the table. "No, Dad, that was the other summer." Sometimes it was. Sometimes it wasn't. She stopped checking. There was a day at the doctor's office I still turn over on the bad nights. A routine visit. My heart, the usual. Whitney insisted on coming into the room with me. The young doctor asked me a question. Whitney answered it. He asked me another. She answered that one too, bright and soft, talking gently over the top of me, until the doctor stopped looking at me at all and started looking only at her. I sat on the paper-covered table in my socks. 68 years old. And I listened to 2 people discuss me the way you discuss weather. Whether it might turn, whether to plan around it. I could have spoken up. I want to be honest with you because a story is worth nothing if the man telling it lies about himself. I did not speak up. I let her talk. I told myself it was easier. It was not easier. It was only quieter. And I had started to confuse the two. On the drive home, she patted my knee at a red light. "See, Dad, aren't you glad I came?" "Yes," I said, because the coat was warm, and I was not ready yet to take it off. Then one afternoon, a new card came in the mail, my account, but it had her name on it too. Whitney Pruitt, embossed in the plastic, right under mine. "I added myself as an authorized user," she said, "so I can help. You don't have to worry about a thing." I looked at that little rectangle a long time. "Thank you," I said. That was the same spring I made Ivy a jewelry box for her birthday. Cut the dovetails by hand, sanded it a whole week until it was smooth as a riverstone. Lined it with felt the blue of that wedding ring quilt. I am not a bragging man, but I will tell you it was a fine little box. Ivy opened it, and her eyes went wide the way a child's do over a real thing. Colton laughed. "Grandpa made you a box, honey. How about that?" He said box the way you would say splinter. Whitney set it on the counter and handed Ivy the tablet they had wrapped, and the little box sat by the toaster for a month before it went off to wherever unwanted things go in that house. Ivy still asks about her special box sometimes. That is the one that catches on something in me, even now. Not the checks lifted from my hand. Not the corrections at the table. The box. A man can stand being made small himself. It is harder to watch them teach a child to do the making. Because here is a thing about being underestimated. It is a coat you can wear. It is warm inside it and quiet, and you can see out through the buttonholes just fine while nobody bothers to look back in. I said thank you, and I remembered everything. I told myself patience was the same as peace. A man tells himself that so he does not have to do the hard thing yet, but they are not the same. Patience is a decision. Peace is a result. You do not always get the second one just because you manage the first. Now, back to the truck. The pills on the seat, the engine ticking. The number I called had a man's name attached to it. Nathan Ferris. Nate. He has been my private banker at Meridian Trust for 30 years, since back when he was a kid in a bad tie, and I was a shop owner who insisted on understanding every line of every statement. Nate picked up on the first ring, because that is the difference between the card in your pocket and the man who actually holds your account. Everett Trainer, he said, and I could hear him smile. It has been too long. Nate, I said, my spending card was canceled today. Declined at a pharmacy. I need a card that works by tonight. A pause. Keys clicking. Give me 1 minute, he said. It took him about 10. I sat there and watched a plastic bag skid across the empty lot in the wind while a man I trusted made my own money mine again. All right, he said. New card, drawn straight off the trust account, overnighted to your home. And I put a temporary number on your phone right now, so you are covered tonight. You are good, Everett. You are always good. Thank you, I said. I should have hung up then. But Nate did not hang up. He went quiet in a way I have learned to notice. It is the quiet of a decent man deciding to do the harder, decent thing. Everett, he said, I have to tell you something. Because these are your accounts, and it is your right to know. Go ahead. Your daughter has called this office twice in the last month. He said it carefully, like a man carrying something breakable across a room. She told us you were, her word, confused. She asked how a durable power of attorney would let her manage your accounts. She asked what she would need to sign to take over. I watched the plastic bag catch on a curb and hold there, shivering. I told her that any change to your accounts would have to come from you, Nate said, directly. And I made a note in the file. I want you to know I never gave her one number that was not already hers to see. I know you didn't, I said. Are you all right? I'm fine, Nate. And I was. That is the strange part. I did not feel hot. I did not feel like shouting. I felt cold and clear, the way the shop floor felt at 6 in the morning before the machines woke up, when you could see every tool in its place and know exactly what the day required. Cold clarity. That is the only way I can name it. They had not canceled my cards to protect me from my money. They had canceled them to reach for it. And here is the part that turned the cold into something colder. They thought there was almost nothing to reach. The next morning I got the rest of it from a child. Ivy was on my porch with her crayons, coloring a horse purple, because at 7 a horse can be any color it wants. I brought her cocoa. She swung her feet. Grandpa, she said, not looking up, when you go to the money place, can I still come see you? I kept my voice easy. You keep your voice easy for a child. That is a law. What money place, sweetheart? Daddy said. She pressed hard with the purple. He told Mommy when you go to the money place, in the little apartment, then we can finally get the cabin at the lake. Mommy said don't say it, but you won't tell, right? I won't tell, I said. Drink your cocoa, honey. It's getting cold. A child says the true thing in a small voice. Then she goes back to her horse and never knows she handed you the whole world. I want to tell you what that morning did to me, because it was not what you would think. It did not make me want to hurt anyone. It made me very calm. It made me feel like a man who has been squinting at a blurred page for months and finally set the right glasses on his nose. There it all was, in focus. The little apartment, the money place, whatever they pictured that to be. The cabin at the lake, bought with a father's whole life and promised to a girl who did not know the price. I looked at Ivy's purple horse. She had given it a green mane, and I thought, plainly, the way you think a true thing without any heat in it. I have been called confused by people who cannot see the ground under their own feet. That was the moment the leaving started. Not the fighting, the leaving. The quiet decision to stop being the man they had voted me to be. I sat on the step beside her, and I watched her color, and I understood the shape of it now. The little apartment, the money place, whatever they imagined that was. And the cabin at the lake, bought with a father's life, promised to a little girl who did not know it was blood money. I was not angry at Ivy. You cannot be angry at the messenger when the messenger is 7 and offering you her purple crayon. But I was done pretending. I did not do anything that night, or the next. A younger man does something that night. I know because I was a younger man once, and I have the scars where the doing cost more than the leaving would have. Instead, I went to see Marvin Kilmer. Marvin kept the books for half the businesses in this county for 40 years, mine included. He is 70 now, with a bad hip and a good mind, and a garage he heats with a wood stove where the coffee is always too strong. We have been friends since Carter was president. I told him all of it, the pharmacy, the card with her name on it, the 2 calls to Nate, the money place, the cabin. Marvin listened, the way old friends listen, which is without a single interruption, turning his coffee cup a slow quarter turn on the workbench. When I finished, he was quiet a while. You could end them, he said finally. Not asking, just laying the option on the bench where we could both look at it. You have got the paper, you have got the money, you could make some calls of your own and leave that boy standing in a crater. I could. Don't. He turned the cup another quarter. Don't cut her off at the knees, Ev. She is still your girl. She is scared, and scared people do ugly things, and that man of hers has been pouring poison in her ear for years. If you burn it all down, you burn her down with it, and then what did you save? So I do nothing? I didn't say that. He looked at me over his glasses. I said, don't burn it down. There is a difference between defending your house and torching the neighborhood. Stop pretending you are the man they decided you are. Stand up straight, and let them find out standing up costs nothing and means everything. That is the thing about a good friend. He does not tell you what you want to hear. He tells you what your wife would have told you if she were still here to tell you. 2 days later, I sat in Loretta Hoyt's office. Loretta has been my estate attorney since Ada and I set up the trust in 2015. She is a plain-spoken woman of about 55 who wears reading glasses on a chain and does not waste a sentence. She already knew most of it. Lawyers hear the weather changing before the rest of us feel the wind. Let me tell you what is true, Everett, she said. So you are standing on solid ground. Everything is in the Ada Trainer Living Trust, the brokerage, the certificates, this house. You are the sole trustee. You are the sole beneficiary while you live. Whitney is not on any of it. She cannot touch a dollar of it, today or ever, unless you put her there. And the cards she canceled? Were authorized user cards on a single spending account you fund. A small dry smile. She canceled her own ability to spend your money. That is all she canceled. She had a card with her name on it. She never had the money behind it. She just assumed the card was the account. Most people do. I let that settle. And the power of attorney, I said. The one she asked Nate about. Loretta took off her glasses. Here is where you should listen close. A durable power of attorney signed by a man who is not incapacitated, obtained by telling a bank he is confused when he is not, that is not helping an aging parent. That is a false statement to a financial institution in service of taking control of his assets. If she had gotten you to sign under that story, she and possibly Colton would have a real problem, a legal one. I don't want her to have a legal problem, I said. I know you don't. Loretta put her glasses back on. That is exactly why you are going to do this the quiet way. You are not going to attack her, Everett. You do not have to. You only have to be in the room when she tries. Let the paper do the work. Let the truth be sitting at the table when she reaches across it. Let the facts do the work. Ada used to say that, in almost those words over the index cards on a Sunday night. Never argue with a man about a number. Just show him the number. I decided something in that office. I decided I would not raise my voice one time. Not once. The papers could speak for both of us. And whatever room this ended in, no one would ever be able to say the old man lost his temper and made a scene. Because I was not going to lose anything. I was going to set a table, and I was going to wait. Over the next 2 weeks, I built a folder. Not a weapon, a folder. There is a difference, and the difference is the whole of my creed. I gathered what had always been mine. The trust documents, thick and dull and ironclad. The brokerage statements, 30 years of small quarterly deposits, grown into a number that would have made Whitney sit down. The deed to the house, in the trust, in my name. And the passbook from 1983, $40 in Ada's careful hand on the first line, because I wanted it on top. I wanted the whole story visible, from the $40 to now. Then I did a second tally, and this one I did without 1 ounce of resentment, because Ada would not let me keep score in anger. I wrote down what I had quietly paid for over the years. Colton's truck, when the dealer called his loan. $11,000. Paid, never mentioned. Ivy's daycare, 2 full years, when Whitney cried at my kitchen table about the cost. Paid through the daycare directly, so no one had to feel it. The new roof on their house, the winter it failed. $9,000. I told them the warranty covered it. There was no warranty. There was me, line after line, not to hold it over anyone. To remember clearly who had been carrying whom. A man should not confuse his own patience with weakness. Sometimes you need it written down, so you stop apologizing for surviving. While I built my folder, they built their certainty. I heard about it sideways, the way you hear about weather in a town 2 counties over. Colton told somebody at church they would have Dad settle somewhere safer by fall. Whitney started touring the small apartments, the kind with a nurse at a front desk and the day's menu posted by the elevator. She even took me to see one. I will not forget that afternoon. She walked me down a beige hallway with her hand light on my elbow, steering, and a smiling young woman told me about activity hours and pointed out the grab bars, and Whitney kept saying, "Isn't it nice, Dad? Isn't it so nice?" And I said it was nice, because it was, for someone, just not for me, and not yet, and not decided by anyone but me. Nobody asked me, "Why would you ask a man you have already packed?" I let them believe it. That was the hardest patience of the whole business. Letting people you love walk further out onto ice you know is thin, because the only way they will ever believe it is thin is to feel it start to give under them, and you cannot tell them. You can only be standing on the bank when it goes. Then I called Nate, and I made it simple. I had Whitney removed as an authorized user from the spending account. I had 2 new cards issued in my name only. I moved nothing, hid nothing, punished no one. I just took my own hand back off the table where I had let it lie too long, and I waited, because I knew what was coming. Loretta knew too. Whitney was already building the room she thought would trap me. It came on a Tuesday. Whitney called, bright and careful. "Dad, I set up a meeting for us, Friday at the bank. There's a nice man there who helps families get everything organized, so you don't have to stress about any of it. Just come and sign a few things and we'll take all this worry off your plate. It's for your own good." For your own good. Twice now. "That sounds fine, sweetheart," I said. "I'll be there." I heard it land on her end. That little exhale, she heard surrender. It was not surrender. She picked the room. She picked the day. She had already picked the witnesses, though not the way she imagined. All I had to do was put on a clean shirt and show up. Loretta, when I told her, only said, "Good, let her convene it. I will be there. So will Nate. And Everett, wear the blue shirt. Ada always said you looked like somebody in the blue shirt." I wore the blue shirt. The meeting was in a glass conference room at Meridian Trust, 10 floors up, with a long table and a view of the river going gray under a low sky. Whitney was there first, of course. Colton beside her in a suit that cost more than it should have. A notary at the end of the table with her little stamp and her ink pad. A polite young woman who had no idea what she had been brought to witness. Whitney had a folder of her own. She slid a document across the table before I had even sat down. A durable power of attorney, tabbed for signature, her name on every line where control would pass. "It's very simple, Dad," she said, using her warm voice, the Sunday dinner voice. "This just lets me handle the accounts so you can relax. No more declined cards. No more confusion. We just need your signature and the notary can stamp it, and we're done." Colton slid a pen toward me. He was already half smiling. He thought he was watching the last 10 seconds of a long game. I did not pick up the pen. The door opened. Nate Ferris came in with a folder, and behind him came Loretta Hoyt, glasses on their chain, briefcase in hand. Whitney's face did a small, complicated thing. "I'm sorry, who?" she started. "This is Nate Ferris," I said. "He has managed my accounts for 30 years. And this is Loretta Hoyt, my attorney." I asked them to sit in, since we are getting everything organized. Colton's smile lost a corner. Nate sat. He folded his hands on his folder and he spoke to Whitney, not to me, and his voice was kind and level and terrible in its calm. "Mrs. Prewitt," he said, "before anyone signs anything, you should understand whose accounts these actually are." He opened the folder. "The spending card you canceled last month was an authorized user card. You were a user on your father's account. Canceling it removed your ability to spend. It did nothing to the account itself. The account and every other account belongs to your father." He said it without one drop of pleasure in it. Nate is not a hard man. He was only setting a true thing down on a table that had been built out of a false one. And a true thing has a weight. It empties a room of everything lighter than itself. Whitney's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Loretta took it from there, and she laid the papers on the table one at a time, unhurried, like a woman dealing a hand she has held for a long time. "Everything your father owns sits inside the Ada Trainer Living Trust," she said. "He is the sole trustee. No one else has authority over $1 of it. Not now. Not through a power of attorney signed today. This document," and she touched the POA with one finger and slid it gently back toward Whitney, "would have given you nothing because it was built on a story that is not true. A story you told this bank twice, that your father is confused." The room was very quiet. The river slid by, gray. Then Loretta set down the last of it, the brokerage summary. She did not read the number aloud. She did not have to. She simply turned it to face Whitney and let her read it herself. I watched my daughter's eyes go down the page and then stop. I watched the number go into her the way cold water goes into you, all at once and then everywhere. No shouting. I want you to understand. No security guard. No dramatic ending. Just a room learning the truth at the same speed, and one young woman learning it a half second ahead of her husband. Colton got there next. I saw the exact moment. His face when he understood that the money he had been counting on, the money that was going to save him, the money that was already spent in his mind on a lake cabin, was locked inside a door that only I could open, and that I was never going to open it for him. Because I knew by then what Colton was drowning in. Loretta had found it in an afternoon, in filings anyone can read. His business was underwater. A note he could not cover was already called and coming due. He had not been reaching for my money to get rich. He had been reaching for it to keep from going under, and he had been willing to put me in a little apartment to do it. "Dad," Whitney said. Her voice was very small now, all the warmth gone out of it, and under the warmth, nothing but a frightened girl. "How much? How long?" 30 years, I said. "A little every quarter. Your mother and I—" "I didn't," she said. "I didn't know." "I know you didn't, sweetheart. And this is the truth." My voice did not have one hard edge in it. "You were living inside it the whole time. You just never asked whose house it was." I did not gloat. I want that on the record. There is no smaller man than the one who wins and then keeps hitting. I had come to set the table, and the table was set, and the food was the truth, and that was enough. I stood up. I gathered my papers. I left the power of attorney lying there for the notary to take home unstamped. "I think we're done getting organized," I said. Colton caught me in the parking garage. Of course he did. Cornered men always do. "You think you're something," he said low and fast, close to my face. "You let us sweat all this time. You sat there like a broken old man, and you let us." "You decided I was broken," I said. "I never said one word about it either way." "You have no idea what I'm dealing with." His voice cracked on it. "The business. The note. Do you know what happens to me Friday?" "I do, actually," I said. Loretta read the filings. "I'm sorry, Colton. I mean that. But you didn't come to me and ask. You went to a bank and called me confused, and you promised my granddaughter a lake with money you were going to take out of my life." He stepped toward me. Whitney came around the concrete pillar just then, fast, Ivy's booster seat still in her hand from the car. I did the only thing I did with my body in this whole long story. I stepped once, sideways, and I put myself between Colton and my daughter, and I did not move. That is all. No fist, no shove. An old tool-and-die man planting his feet on a concrete floor and becoming, for one moment, the die that does not bend. Colton looked at me. Then he looked at Whitney. Whatever he saw in the two of us standing there ended it. He swore once quietly, the worst thing I will repeat, which is that he said nothing at all, and he walked to his expensive car, and he drove away. He did not come back, not that day, not in the end, at all. A week later, I sat in Loretta's office one more time to decide how far the consequence would go. That is a thing people forget. When you hold the paper, you do not just hold the other person's fate. You hold your own soul in the same hand. You could refer the false statements to the bank's fraud people, Loretta said. The incapacity claim, it would stick. Colton signed his name to some of it. It could be a criminal matter. I will do it if you tell me to. I thought about it. I thought about Ivy's purple horse. I thought about a girl who did not know it was blood money. No, I said. You're sure? I'm sure. Take Whitney off every account. She was never on them, but make it certain in writing so this never happens again. Restructure the trust the way we talked about. Put my name on everything, out in the open, so no one in this town ever gets to decide who I am again. I paused. And open a small account for Ivy, education only, locked, on my terms. She doesn't get punished for who her parents were on their worst day. Loretta wrote it all down. Then she looked up. She wrote for a while. Then she set down her pen. You understand, she said, that if you had come to me a year ago, angrier, I would have helped you take everything. The house they live in leans on money you gave. The cars. There is a version of this where Colton has nothing and Whitney has less, and it would all have been legal, and some men would have called it justice. I know, I said. What changed? I thought about a purple horse with a green mane. I thought about a little box by a toaster. I remembered I still have a granddaughter, I said, and that she is going to grow up in whatever I leave standing. I would rather leave her a grandfather than a crater. No referral, no ruin, a boundary and an open account. She almost smiled. You know most men in your chair want blood. Justice and revenge use the same tools, I said. The only difference is that justice puts the tools down when it's finished. I closed the door on Colton Pruitt that week, but I left the porch light on for my daughter. That is the most a wronged man should ever do. Close the door, leave the light, and wait to see who walks back up the steps in their own good time. Here is what I did not expect. The healing was slower than the reckoning, and better. Colton was gone from the marriage by June. The business took him under. The way water takes anything that has been pretending it can float. He landed 2 counties over, selling something else to someone else. He sees Ivy every other weekend. He has never once called me. I did not need him to. Whitney did not come back to me all at once. Reconciliation is not a door you walk through. It is a stair you climb. And she climbed it one honest step at a time, and I made her climb it, because a thing given too easily is a thing learned too lightly. She got a job, a real one, at the county clerk's office with a paycheck she budgeted to the dollar. She sold the too big house and rented a small clean one Ivy loves. She paid her own light bill for the first time in 15 years, and she told me, on the porch one evening, that she cried when it cleared and not from sadness. My neighbor Pearl Dabney, who has watched this family from her own porch for 30 years and misses absolutely nothing, stopped me at the mailbox that summer. Your Whitney waved at me this morning, Pearl said. Really waved, not the parade kind. She looks like herself again, Everett. Looks like she finally set something heavy down. I told her Whitney had. I did not tell her what. Some things a small town does not need the whole of. The strange truth is that Whitney seemed lighter with less than she had ever seemed with plenty. I have watched that happen to people. Money you did not earn sits on you like a wet coat. She was learning to earn it and standing up straighter under the honest weight of it than she ever had under the borrowed kind. One Saturday in late spring, she brought a notebook to my kitchen table. Not a lawyer's folder. A notebook, spiral-bound, with her own careful handwriting in it. "Dad," she said, "show me how you did it. You and Mom. I don't understand how two people who drove old trucks could have. I want to understand. I want Ivy to understand." So I got the tin box down from the shelf, Ada's index cards, 40 years of Sunday nights in pencil, and I got the passbook out of the cedar chest, the $40 on the first line. I showed my daughter how her mother and I built a life one quiet quarter at a time. No secret, no trick, just patience, which is a decision made again and again until the result was peace, which they had never seen because we never let them. "You could have let me fall," Whitney said at one point, very low, not looking up from the cards. "In that conference room, you could have let me hit the ground." "Your mother wouldn't have," I said. "Neither will I." She put her hand over mine on the table. Her mother's hands. I had not held them in 3 years. We sat like that a while. The kitchen clock ticked. The same clock that ticked through 40 years of Sunday nights, over the tin box and the pencil and Ada's low-climbing laugh. Neither of us said much. Some repairs do not need words. They only need two people willing to stay in the room long enough for the quiet to turn from the hard kind into the soft kind. She copied out one of her mother's cards that afternoon in her own hand. A grocery budget from 1990, $40 for the week. She held it up and shook her head and laughed. And then she was not laughing, and I got up to put the kettle on so she could have the kitchen to herself for a minute. That is another thing patience teaches you. When to leave the room. By the 4th of July, the blue quilt was out of the cedar chest, folded over the porch swing where I sit in the evenings now. Ada would have liked it there, in the air, being used instead of shut in the dark being saved. Ivy planted tomatoes with me. She is a terrible gardener and a wonderful one. Dirt to the elbows, a cage set crooked, a purple crayon still in her pocket. She laughed her grandmother's laugh, low and then climbing, and did not know she was doing it. And I had to look at the tomatoes for a minute so she would not see her old grandpa's face. "Grandpa, are you crying?" she said. "No, honey," I said. "The dirt got in my eyes." "You have to be more careful," she told me, very serious, and went back to her crooked cage. And I thought, yes, careful. They always did call me that. It turns out it was the truest thing anybody ever said about me, and they never once knew what it meant. The table got smaller when Colton left it. Then it got bigger, the right way, the honest way. We built the money quiet, Ada and I. A quarter at a time in the dark, telling no one. It turns out you can rebuild a family exactly the same way. Slowly, honestly, with more patience than pride. So that is the whole of it. A declined card at a pharmacy and a passbook with $40 on the first line and everything that ran between them. If you have ever been treated like a problem to be managed by the very people you spent your whole life providing for, if you have ever paid for everything and been called nothing, if you have ever sat quiet in a coat of being underestimated because it was easier than the fight, then I hope you will do one thing for me tonight. Share this with someone who may need to hear it. There is a father or a mother or a grandparent out there right now being made small at their own table, and they need to know that dignity is not something anybody can cancel. And tell me in the comments, tell me who taught you that money is quietest when it is doing the most good. Mine was a woman named Ada, who kept her books in pencil and balanced them to the penny, and who was right about nearly everything. Thank you for spending this time with me. And remember, no matter how old you are or how small they have tried to make you, it is never too late to answer contempt with dignity, panic with patience, and pride with love.